Good morning, everybody. Can you guys see my screen? Perfect, thank you. I'm gonna move this guy over here. Good morning, friends. Good morning, good morning. We have lots of folks joining us. Something like 70 people registered for today, which is exciting. Super exciting. Well, I am going to go ahead and get started. I see we still have people joining, but we're 3 minutes after the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get rocking and rolling here. Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrea Olson. I'm the Executive Director of the North Dakota Community Action Partnership, and I also serve as the Region 8 RPIC lead. The Region 8 RPIC is a conglomerate of all the state associations in our 6 states. So it's North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. And we're all here today for part 2 of the Compassion Resiliency training with our friends Kay and Beth. Really excited to be here. Before we get started, we're going to dive into the promise of community action. You're welcome to unmute and join me in online chaos. But here we go. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. Couple key reminders and action items for us today. Exciting. It was just announced yesterday that the Region 8 conference registration is open. And again, that's open to all of us from North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. It's going to be July 15th and 18th in Loveland, Colorado. We do have a hybrid option available. So if you wanted to join virtually, that is absolutely an option. Please go to that website that you see, ccaa.org, to the Colorado Community Action Association's website. If you want to learn more, if you're interested in registering, we're so excited that registration is finally open and up and running as of yesterday. Additionally, we have recordings and trainings that are available on our Region 8 Online Learning Academy. And this is available to all Region 8 Community Action staff free of charge. So again, any CSBG eligible entity, any community action agency in North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming, you are able to access the Region 8 Online Learning Academy free of charge. It's online, it's self-paced learning, and it's available at region8rpic.org. This is part 2 of the Compassion Resiliency training. Part 1 is recorded and already up and running on Moodle. Faith is going to upload, or maybe she did already, into the chat instructions so everybody knows how to get on to this Region 8 Academy. Additionally, the Tech Talks, this is a great example of the trainings that we do within Region 8. This is another great example of the kind of content you're going to see when you go onto Moodle. So Faith from our region, she hosts monthly Tech Talks, and those are open to all of you, again, free of charge. Faith does them monthly. You can see this super rad lineup of topics that she's going to be covering throughout the year of 2025. I encourage you to join, check it out. If you can't join live, the good news is everything's going to be cataloged on the Region 8 Moodle Academy. There's some Roma stuff on there. There's intro to community action. So we absolutely encourage you to check it out. Lastly, before I turn it over to Kay and Beth, just want to let us all know that in the chat today, we're going to see both a pre-test and a post-test. We're just asking that you let us know what you're learning. Help us help you. We love data. I said data is our love language. So we will put the link for that pretest into the chat. I'm going to ask you to all complete it. It's super quick. It's only like 3 or 4 questions, but it really kind of helps us capture, the impact of what we're doing here today. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Beth and Kay. Welcome back, Beth and Kay. Thank you so much. I love coming to your sessions, and you have a major following within the Region 8 network. So we're fangirling. I'm fangirling. Happy to bring you back today. Welcome and happy Friday.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Can you see my slides? Okay, great. Great. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming on a Friday. Happy Friday. I'm Kay Glidden. Just a little bit about my background is I have 8 years as a mental health therapist at a university of Nebraska in Kearney, where I live, and then also 20 years in public behavioral health. And Beth and I have our own training company where we go out and do these kinds of trainings. We've been training for a long time. And you're one of our favorite groups because you're so interactive, and we really appreciate that.
We compare everybody to you guys, just so you know. We brag about you with everyone. We're like, well, some groups we were. Anyway, I'm Beth Reynolds Lewis, and just real shortly about my background, because I'm sure some of you were on yesterday. Prior to this, I worked as a child protection and safety worker doing primarily investigations, was a forensic interviewer for 5 or 6 years at our advocacy center, and went on to do public behavioral health. I'm kind of a network person that goes across systems trying to connect people. So thanks everyone for being here on a Friday. Yay, you made it.
So we're informal trainers, so we don't like to just be talking heads here. We would really appreciate it being you participate and be interactive, because when you share your resources and your experience, that just makes it richer for everybody. And I think, Andrea, I sent an outline handout.
Yes. Do you want me to put that in the chat, Kay?
Yeah, that would be great.
Absolutely.
I don't know if people want to use it. It's just an outline of the presentation for notes. And if you want to use it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. So this is what we're going to talk about today: dealing with difficult people. Raise your hand if you've ever dealt with a difficult person. Everybody, right? And then we're going to do some basic communication tips, talk about self-care. And then we'll do some common workplace scenarios as a group and say, what would you do in this situation? So do you think people are tense and rude right now? You can either put it in the chat, or you can unmute, whatever you feel like is comfortable for you.
People are saying yes. Kind of feels like we're out in a sandstorm right now a little bit, like it's coming from all different directions.
And why do you think that people are tense and rude right now? Is it because everybody's stressed? Are we still feeling things from the pandemic? People are overwhelmed, social isolation, rudeness.
Somebody added social media, inflation, and uncertainty. All of the above, definitely.
Big uncertainty right now, yes. Could be the person is dealing with a mental or physical illness, which is causing them to be difficult. We just need to realize that beneath every behavior, there is a feeling. There is a reason for their behavior. And beneath every feeling is a need. So we kind of have to peel the onion layers back. And when we meet that need, rather than focusing on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptom. Now, many of us only meet a person one time. So this is difficult to do, but if you're meeting with a client that you have a relationship with, this might be a helpful approach. So how many of you are dog people? No disrespect to the cat people, but we are going to have a lot of dogs today. And we are going to go through these 7 different types of difficult people. Now, are they all the difficult people in the world? No, they are not. We just chose the ones that we thought were most prominent, and be thinking about, what is a difficult person for you? So the first is a bully. How many of you have ever experienced a bully? I'll be sharing my bully story here in a few minutes. Quick to anger, can come across as rude, arrogant, narcissistic, using insults, insecure, power and control, intimidating. And how do you handle a bully? I think in all of these situations with difficult people, we have to remember to be taking the high road and being polite and professional as much as possible, right? That's true for all of these. And then try not to take any comments personally, that is difficult to do in the moment, but calmly and confidently apologizing for the problem. Showing empathy if it's genuine, and asking, how can I help? And we may have to ask that several times, and not matching their aggression. Not if they're yelling at you or their voice is raised, not also raising your voice. And sometimes we've even had with bullies in situations, people have said that they lower their voice, they become more quiet.
Yeah.
What else with bullies? Anybody else have any ideas on how they handle a bully? Sometimes you can't say anything because of the power hierarchy. Sometimes you just have to, not respond. Anybody, Beth, anybody have any?
Let's see.
Safari said big words.
I know. Someone said I've been known to shut down, and it is hard not. I would agree with that, especially if this isn't your first experience with somebody, like, you're walking into the bully conversation, you almost shut down before you go in the room because you know how it's going to go. So it is really, really difficult. And it's hard, I feel like, to slow down the conversation, right? If they're what's that called? Like, you feel like you're just getting ran over with words. Andrew wrote, pick my battles. Some folks are just not worth the energy. Yeah, I think that's a very good idea.
A complainer. Nothing is ever good enough for the complainers. Nothing satisfies them. They don't want solutions often, and it's never their fault, right? How many of you have worked with complainers? Complainers sometimes can come across or are passive aggressive, right? They just want to complain, but they don't want to do anything about it. Complainers, as is all of these types of difficult people, can really drain your energy and exhaust you or stress you out. So we have to be careful when we're working with habitual complainers, and just saying, what can I do for you? Redirect the conversation. And a lot of people have told us they put a boundary around their time. So let's say Beth is complaining to me, and it's been going on for half an hour. We haven't reached any solutions. And I would just say, Beth, I only have time for 2 more minutes right now because I have to go to another meeting. So do you want to set up another time to further talk about this situation? And either she does or she doesn't. A lot of times they won't show up for that other conversation because they just want to complain, right?
Sometimes you can ask somebody to write it down. We're running out of time here. Can you just write those down and next time we get together?
The indecisives, right? They want the best deal. They have difficulty making decisions. They won't commit. They can be draining. And sometimes they want you to make the decision. So with indecisives, it's really important to find what is it that they really are indecisive about, and what information do they need to make a decision. And by not deciding, that is a decision, right? Indecisives can do the pro and con list, make a plan, and saying, right now, what can I do for you? Kind of redirect the conversation on, in the present moment, what can I do for you right now? Anything else with indecisives?
I feel like they can be really frustrating to work with, especially when you feel like you know what the choice is, right? The choice is right there. You don't, and sometimes people don't have a bunch of choices. This is the choice, but still you have to take that step back and let them have ownership of that choice. So they can be time consuming and frustrating.
Impatient people. They don't care that it can't be done. They're not respecting your boundaries. I want it right now. And I deserve this, right? I have an entitlement. I can't believe this. And they can be very frustrated, right? So how do you handle an impatient person? Maybe it's explaining why you can't meet their needs right now, if that's the case. We're short-staffed. I appreciate you being patient. I understand you're frustrated, but we will serve you, assure that we will, get to you as soon as we can, get to your issue and serve you as quickly as we can, right? Maybe it's a matter of helping them understand why maybe they're so frustrated at you because you can't follow through. And know-it-alls. Know-it-alls, they know everything. They're critical, condescending, rude. They talk a lot and dominate the conversation. And sometimes you can't tell what they want, right? Know-it-alls, how many of you know know-it-alls? And what do you do? How do you deal with know-it-alls? You compliment their knowledge. If you can be sincere, you have to be sincere and genuine. Massage their ego. Don't argue with them. You can say, what are your next steps? And then tell them what your next steps are going to be. Because sometimes know-it-alls, they may be confusing their opinions with true facts, right? So they may be saying something, but by policy and procedure, this is what can be done, right? So you may have to explain to them what the true facts are in the situation. Anything else you do with know-it-alls? I worked with a know-it-all, and it took me several years to figure out how to work with her. And the best thing I did with her was go to her and massage her ego and say, now, what would you do in this situation? Right? How would, and just ask her and try to get her on board with the decision.
Someone wrote smile and walk away, and Jamie wrote let them talk and run out of air, which I love. I think that's a huge strategy. Thank you for sharing that. Let them run out of air.
Micromanagers, they can be very controlling. They want to do your job, right? They're always over your shoulder telling you what to do. and monitor the details, often with criticism and often failing to delegate. So what do you do with micromanagers? Sharing with them what you have been doing, even if it has to be on a daily basis. Focus on earning trust and saying things like, how about I handle this project independently for 2 weeks and then we can review, right? The results together. What else do you do for micromanagers? I had a boss that never delegated anything to me, and all I could do was just keep asking her to delegate, but she never would. Very rarely.
Sometimes it's like the person that I'm working with right now, it's like a peer in my regular work life. And I appreciate her dedication, right? And I appreciate her input. But the struggle is the other people involved in the system are like, she needs to get out of this. She needs to stop. Do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to be the peacemaker a little bit. Like, we so appreciate your willingness to serve someone, but I feel like we need to talk together as a group, trying to do that bridge over all the time. Like, they're appreciated. Thanks so much for your help. Let's strategize about next steps. Who's going to do what, or who's going to be in charge of what, and how do you want that report out?
Yeah,
Or how do you want to share in your report about what you've done?
I have a comment I'd like to make as well, if I could.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I was a county social service director, and one of the responsibilities we had as an agency was child protection. And so, I got accused of being a micromanager many times because I wanted to know what was going on in each one of those situations. Because what happened is that these people would call me because I was in charge. And so I wanted to know if I needed to know something in specific about all those cases.
Yes.
So I was a micromanager,
I totally understand that.
but my staff didn't always understand that.
Yeah. It is really hard, I think, when you're in that middle layer, like we talked last time. You have people above you, and then you have people below you, and not below, but do you know what I mean? People,
Yeah.
you're supposed to be supervising, managing, whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes that understanding of I need to be up to date so that I can help support the decisions you're making. Right?
Yeah.
If somebody
Yeah.
calls me, I have to be, it is a struggle. That's a really hard place to be.
And that happened all the time.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine.
So I have a question that's kind of related to this discussion. I sometimes am really bad at being a micromanager. How do I stop? That's my question.
Maybe it's this last bullet is saying, can we meet in 2 weeks to go over what you've accomplished instead of every day?
Well, and it's something that's kind of helped me, and that's hard for me still, but I agree with what Kay said. And then also the idea is, if it's a coworker or peer or somebody that you supervise, that idea, or even somebody that you're working with, that idea of stepping back because it's their journey, their learning moment. And I always think of it as you're almost stealing from them. You're stealing that opportunity if you start micromanaging too much, for them to make solid decisions, and maybe for them to make mistakes too.
Right.
Sometimes good things happen out of mistakes, but trying to balance that out about where am I, I'm here to support this person, but yet part of that support has to be those teachable moments.
And asking yourself, are you delegating? Can I delegate this?
Oh, and someone wrote, it's hard to learn if you can't get the chance to do it on your own. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's all true. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, hang in there. It will get better.
So verbally abusive, what is your, I guess, policy about working with clients or colleagues even that are verbally abusive or verbally threatening? Do you have a policy? What is it? Do you know it? Because that's really important in this situation. Does your employer want you to be safe? Of course they do, but is it in writing? So verbally abusive, talking down to, name calling, yelling, condescending accusations, right? And what can you do about it? So these are some things. Manner is, again, trying to not retaliate, but staying in that professional, polite manner. Explaining you're here to help, what your role is, and empathizing, understanding their frustration, honesty, what you can do about the problem. And again, maybe talking to them about, well, this is our policy. As far as I need to take a break right now, or I need to get a supervisor right now to help me with the situation. And warning them. So if you continue to use bad language with me, I'm going to have to take a break, or I'm going to have to go get my coworker. Silence sometimes helps. And then after they've run out of things to say, then it's your turn to talk. And if they interrupt you saying, well, I, gave you the opportunity to talk, I'd appreciate the same. And giving them specific choices, options, giving them some control. And then, of course, de-escalation. And we're going to talk more about that. What else do you do for your agency?
Somebody said, I've been so kind to people that are so aggressive that they hang up or leave me or de-escalate. All of them can be killed with kindness. I love that. It's very good.
And also it's important to consider this in terms of coworkers. You don't often think of that, right? But in our situation, when Beth and I worked together, we had two coworkers in an office together, the door closed, who were screaming at each other. And we were like, what do we do? What do we do? And so it's important to, know ahead of time, what do you do in that situation? It was a supervisor and an employee who were screaming at each other. And we ended up going in there and saying, is everybody okay? Does anybody, do you need to take a break? Why don't you take a break? Right? But we often don't think of that when we think of it in terms of, the clients, but we often don't think of it can be our coworker or our boss even.
Yeah. I would think any of these scenarios, really, we always think primarily about people we're serving, but it can be peers, like Kay said, your boss, whoever you're working with, or another agency that you're supposed to partner with. Yeah.
And somebody said, when if they're in a group setting or somebody comes in and is verbally abusive, they had a code word that they used to say, help, I need help, without saying I need help. So they would say, mango or pineapple or something. I mean, something that makes sense. That doesn't really make sense, but a code word, a safe word that they can say, hey, this situation's getting out of hand and I need help. So I need somebody to come up, right now with me. So again, verbal threats, knowing the policies, remaining calm, disengage. Maybe it's just a simple matter of giving a person some water, a bottle of water, and taking a break. They walk outside around the block, you take a break, and can we, come back together in 30 minutes and be calm. Of course, document, getting support. And then Beth's going to talk to you about these next things in terms of walk and talk and low impact debriefing. Anything else with verbal threats or abusive people that you want to talk about?
Someone put in the chat, let's see. We have a name we use in my building. We can throw it in the chat or phone that means that we need help. And yeah, I think those are good. And then making sure everyone knows what to do when that comes up. We've had situations where maybe somebody's meeting with somebody in a conference room and it's getting louder and louder. And no, it was kind of this weird thing that happened. So people were scared when we kind of debriefed afterwards. If they knocked on the door, they were implying that the caseworker wasn't doing their job because they felt like, well, I feel like I'm imposing, maybe they don't really need help. And so we kind of talked it through, and what everybody kind of agreed to in our office was knock on the door and use some like, hey, I'm going to go get some water. Do you guys want some water in here? I mean, some goofy excuse just to kind of interrupt the conversation. Everybody has to take a breath. And then whoever's in the room with the case manager knows that they're being heard, right? That they aren't there alone. So it kind of helps break that chaos up a little bit that's going on. So whatever the jam is for your office, where you can create a pause for each other, right?
And somebody said they just fake a phone call. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to get this, right? So it's fake, but they don't know that. I'm sorry, we'll have to, I need to take this, whatever works. All right, so who do you find is the most difficult person to work with and why? So here are the types.
Okay, so somebody put in the chat micromanaging, and somebody also wrote, I love the dog pics. I'm with it. Kate and Doll, those are awesome. Impatient and know-it-alls.
Yeah, and if we're really lucky, we can have all 7 at the same time,
Oh, Lisa wrote, I don't know where this fits, but the gaslighter.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. There's a lot of different types. We've had people say, I've had a person that kept flirting with me, right, inappropriately. I work with an overthinker, so there's a lot of different types. What else?
Know-it-all. The complainer. There's a lot in the chat about the complainers.
So I
The
hope,
flirting is hard to manage.
what'd you say?
The flirting is hard to manage.
Oh, yeah, I don't have that issue, but yeah. So we hope we gave you some ideas or some new things to try for the types. So this is a new book by Jefferson Fisher. He's an attorney, but he's also very popular, wrote this book and is on YouTube and Facebook and podcast. And these are also some things that he said in terms of working with difficult people. So when the person insults you or offends you, these are some things that he suggests. So giving it a long pause gives their words a chance to echo back at them. And silence then takes away their dopamine, right? Because they're all wired and fired up about it. So if you're just not saying anything, you're really not, they don't like that because that's not what they want. They want you to come back. And then slowly repeat what they said. And then keep breathing out. Breath control helps with your emotional regulation. And that's true with all of these situations. Breath control is really important. So in a situation of someone belittling you, patronizing you, or condescending, basically talking down to you, make them say it again. They aren't, they're not going to expect that. what was that, that you said? And then at that point, they'll go, oh, oops, never mind, right? Hopefully they say that. And ask a question of outcome. This type of question seeks to highlight and project the reaction they tried to get from you. You're an echo, meaning things like, did you mean for that to sound hurtful? Did you want that to hurt? And then reply with silence. No matter their answer, silence is your reply because it's better not to respond. You're the one with control and composure. And then finally, if somebody is rude or dismissive, right? Oh, you're still talking? No one asked you. If they're saying things like that, giving it a short pause, pausing it long enough for them to consider their words. Ask a question again of intent. Did you mean that for that to sound rude? Was that meant to be helpful or hurtful? And then just wait, because most of the time at that point, people go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to sound like that, right? So those are coming from Jefferson Fisher's new book, which I thought was helpful. Now, when I just dealt with a rude person last week, and of course, this is, I teach this, I read, I've read the book with Jefferson Fisher, and did I respond this way? No, I did not. I walked away, turned around and said, you're welcome, under my breath, passively aggressive. I did not do this. I wanted to do this, but I just didn't even think about it because my emotions were so up that I didn't even think about this until later. I thought, okay, how could I handle this differently? And, all of this is that we look at these situations a little bit differently and how we want to respond differently than we have in the past, because we just always go to what we've always done. And so hopefully my next rude situation, I will be able to look at this, have this kick in a little bit faster.
I think you almost have to practice the I mean, at least
Yeah.
for me, I almost have to practice it in my head. Like, so when it does come up, I kind of
Yeah.
have my little game plan together, right? Like, so if this happened last time with this person, so if they say this, I'm going to try to go here.
Yeah. Anything else with that? Any comments? Go ahead, Beth.
Okay, so it's really important that after moments like this, we try to de-stress immediately, right? Try to slow down some of those responses that are built into our being just because we're human, right? It's easy to get kicked into that caveman mode where it's fight or flight. So thinking about these things, there's some ways to do it. You're breathing. You can relieve tension, the tense and relieve muscles. Talk it out loud, going through it, what we will talk about in a little bit, the lid process, taking a break, but making it a meaningful break, I think is important, right? Not just getting on your phone, but being like, taking a break in the sense that I need to take a pause here. I need to catch my breath. I might need to move, or can I debrief in a healthy way with someone? And hot walk and talk is another mechanism to do this. So low impact debriefing, or LID, was put together by the TEND Academy by Francois Mathieu. And if you guys have heard us before, you might have heard us talk about this tool. Very simple: self-awareness, fair warning, consent, and limited disclosure. So it's important that you teach a coworker or whoever you're connected to at work this tool, so you can kind of speak the same language. But what often happens after we go through an event at work, or something happens that's maybe bothersome, a little bit distressing, we kind of just bleh to the next person we see. So what used to happen a lot in our office is somebody, let me give you an example. So if I saw Kay in the kitchen and Kay asked me, hey,
How was your weekend?
I just go, bleh, just share.
And I was just ready, good. I just wanted fine, right? I didn't want to be verbally vomited on, right? I'm not prepared.
Yeah, and it might be nothing about the weekend, but that's typically what comes out of our mouth as the last worst event, right? So what we can do instead is Kay knows low impact debriefing. I would say, do you have time to do a lid debriefing? So there's a
And I would
self-awareness.
say, yes, I have time. Let's go back to my office. Or I would say, no, I don't have time right now. Can we meet at another time? Or can I get you with somebody that knows this model?
Yeah. And I'm going to give her fair warning. I'm going to give her like a category like Jeopardy. It's about a dog, or it's about the client or customer I just visited with. And so then she can see kind of where she is in her
And
life.
I can say, okay, this is a good day. I can listen to you about this client. Or no, I'm having a bad day. I'm stressed out. I'm dysregulated. I would not be a good person for you to talk to right now. But if I'm okay with it, I can put my feet on the ground, right? I can get centered. I can, get grounded, and I can be ready. I can be ready. She's given me a category. I can be ready to listen to her.
And then I'm going to give a limited disclosure. So just the very highlights of the story, no graphic details. There's no evidence that proves in debriefing, the more graphic the details, the more debriefed you feel. So, but I am going to give her space to ask me questions. So she can ask me, tell me more about this, right? So it just kind of wraps up the story. You have someone to talk to. And you aren't kind of sliming the whole office, not intentionally, but you know how it just spreads through the office. Have any of you walked into your office before? Maybe you were out doing whatever, and you walk in and there's just kind of this green funk, right? You just feel like, all right, something happened here. And sometimes that green funk is from this, not that the person intentionally slimed the office, but they didn't let the steam, they didn't let the lid off a little bit of time. They're just blowing, right? Just, this is the story.
And so what happens, Beth, if I have an issue and I keep going to like 5 different people about the same issue, what should I do?
And this is really what Kay's sharing is we had somebody bring this up. It was a large hospital group. And they said, well, I get tired of people just like debriefing about the same thing over and over and over and over. And we asked them this question. And one of the participants in our training said, I would just tell them to get their big girl pants on and deal with it. And I said, that used to be my response. But now that I know this, my suggestion would be you have a coworker who's really struggling with something. So it's our job as peers to support them. So I would go to that person and say, hey, I've heard you do lid debriefing 4 times on the same thing, or, whatever it is. I'm concerned about you. Who can we connect with today that can help you with what's going on? Because sometimes problems are bigger than us, and that's okay. So that's when we need to reach outside our office or workplace. Maybe it's EAP, maybe it's a pastor, whoever they're connected to, somebody that knows the work you all do, and reach out for that help. So hot walk and talk, this is one of my favorite tools. I think it's so usable. So if more of a traumatic event happened, like maybe there was an issue, or I was challenged in the parking lot by somebody I was serving, right? And it was pretty intense. I would grab Kay and I would say, Kay, I need a hot walk and talk. We grab 2 bottles of water. I would drink as much water as I can while we walk as fast as we can, right? Even if you're on a treadmill, I don't care what you're doing. but you have to get your respiration up. And then while we're walking, Kay would ask, how did it start? What happened next? And how did it end? So what we're doing is we're removing all that adrenaline physiologically from my body, right? We're working that out through my breathing. We're getting it out of the adrenal glands that lie on the back of the kidneys. We're flushing those dangerous chemicals out of my body. But at the same time, I'm telling the story about what happened. So that gives an opportunity, I call it to close the trauma loop. Any of you who have ever been, even in a minor fender bender, you can look at that moment. Do you have that moment in your head where things just kind of stopped, right? Like it was a slow motion and then this happened and then it sped up. So it allows our brain to process the event fully and put us right back in the moment. So I'm fine now, I'm talking to Kay, right? So you don't walk home with all that stuff weighing you down. And what happens is you go through the story and you're walking and you're drinking water. At a certain point in time, all of a sudden you will feel better. I've used this tool with other coworkers and with friends, and it is really amazing what can happen. And it's a much quicker way, hopefully, to resolve some of that emotionally traumatic incident that has happened to you, like closing the loop physiologically.
So if you're a supervisor, some things you can do to help with difficult people is always talking about what are those resources out there for people. Is it EAP or therapists? Modeling your own self-care is really important as a supervisor, so that when you're asking others to do self-care, you are also doing it yourself, because they'll look back at you and say, well, you don't do it. Prioritizing mental health, talking about mental health, how important mental health is, how important self-care is, because you work, it's a difficult, lots of emotional trauma. It's a difficult job that you all have. And it's important to talk about it. And it's important for supervisors to support the employees, and for employees to support each other, and for employees to really take good care of themselves. And are you taking vacation yourself as a supervisor, and are you encouraging others to take vacation? So we're going to talk about I statements right now, which a lot of people have heard about. I used to teach this a lot when I was a therapist to students. It's an oldie but a goodie, and this might be something that I might have done in the past with Beth. Let's just use Beth as an example. This is not the appropriate way to do this, all right? So I'm pointing at her as I'm talking. Beth, you're always on your phone when I'm trying to talk to you. You're not listening to anything I'm saying. I'm really, really frustrated. Okay, that's not the appropriate way. If you're truly being assertive, you would be talking with I statements. So we talked about this a little bit last week. I think, I feel when this happens, because, and what I need or want, and what do you think about that? Sort of closing that loop. So this is how it would look then the right way. Beth, I feel frustrated when you're on your phone and not listening to me, because I have to repeat myself and you're not hearing me. So what I need is for you to put your phone down when we are talking to each other. And then I can ask her, what do you think about that? So when I'm pointing and at her and I'm saying you, she's obviously going to be defensive, right? But if I'm saying what I'm truly feeling, those are my feelings. And, she can't take that away from me, because those are really my feelings.
We used to have a supervisor that pointed like this way back in my child protection days. It was always like, she was just almost right in your face. And so now it's kind of a joke with some of the older staff in our office because everybody just wanted to reach out and bite that finger. I mean, just instinctively, you wanted her to stop. And that was just an instinct. I'm going to bite her finger, I swear. It's terrible.
So one thing you could do with I statements is plug in this, put this formula in something that's been bothering you lately. What are some, we did this last week, but again, what are some issues? They don't have to be big issues. They can be issues like my husband never takes the trash out, right? And so I can say, you know, go through, what I do honestly is I write this out before I talk to somebody. I fill in all the blanks and I write it out. Now, I don't read from it when I'm talking with them, but I do write it down. And one time I did ask my husband, I said, do you know I'm using I statements on you? And he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. The psycho mambo jumbo stuff. No, I don't know. And I go, okay. And I never explained it to him. All right, so let's talk a little bit about de-escalation. How do you de-escalate? And we need to remember that nonverbal is actually more important than what we say. So our tone of voice is so important, and how our facial expression is, our eye contact, and remembering that there are cultural differences in nonverbal communication. Some cultures don't like, you know, constant eye contact. People have different, you know, bubbles of personal space. Culturally, that's true too. So we have to remember that as well. So have you ever calmed down when someone says, you need to calm down? Right? No, it never works. So this is my bully story. Beth and I were in Florida doing a presentation, and in Florida, you're never on time in the afternoons because it always has a huge thunderstorm. So we were late. We don't get to Chicago to fly to Omaha until 11 o'clock at night. So everybody's tired. And we get on the plane, and Beth and I are not sitting together. She's a couple rows behind me. And the airline person is going row to row telling people to move their bags further under their seat. So I went ahead and did that because I heard her, and I was going to go to sleep soon. And she asked me to do that, and I said, yes, I did. And thank you. And she said, okay, can you shove that in further? And I go, okay, thank you. And then she started to give me a lecture about why that's so important, because the gentleman I was sitting next to in an emergency situation could get out if I had the, you know, the bag there and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, thank you. And she came up to my shoulder and she said, if you don't calm down, I'm going to have you removed from the plane. And I was like, am I being punked right now? You know, I was like, I teach, you know, I'm a grandma. I teach de-escalation. What is going on? And at that point, I realized if I said one word to her back, I would be removed from the plane. Beth wouldn't have a ride home. The people on the plane would be delayed. So I knew I could not respond. So I just kept my mouth shut, and I did a lot of deep breathing. A lot for like the whole way back. I was going to sleep, but I was too wired to sleep. So I just kept doing deep breathing. And then we get off the plane, and the couple behind me go, I cannot believe what happened to you. And I said, I know. And Beth was like, go ahead, Beth. You always have your side of the story.
I was almost so, I mean, I'm kind of laughing because I don't know what's K. I just hear the steward say, if you don't settle down, I'm going to kick you off the plane. These are all almost 100% Nebraskans just trying to get home. Half of them were asleep. It's not like people, like the bars in Chicago were even open in the airport. So people are just dragging to get on this plane. I was like, I didn't hear any disruption. And then I heard her say this, but I can't see who it's to. And I almost texted Kay and it said, hey, settle down up there, just being a smart aleck. I didn't know it was really directed to her. I was like, so when we're coming off the plane, she goes, did you hear what that stewardess said to me? I was like, that was to you?
Yeah. So I really had to do a lot of emotional regulation and de-escalation within myself. And it was really tough, but I did it. I mean, and now looking back on it, I can say, you know, she was tired too. She probably had a long day. She probably thought my remarks were condescending when I was saying, okay, thank you, though my intent was not that, but she must have thought I was being, condescending to her. So anyway, when we are dysregulated, we go in, our nervous system is dysregulated, and we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And, it often takes us at least 20 minutes to come down from this when our nervous system is dysregulated. So this comes from the Crisis Prevention Institute on de-escalation tips. And being empathetic and non-judgmental is important because, again, this could be the most important issue to them right now in their life, and they want you to listen. Respecting personal space, using non-threatening nonverbals. We talked about that. Speaking slowly, speaking simply, quietly, maybe even your tone of voice, calm. This was me. I had to keep my emotional brain in check because if I didn't, I would be going off. And that would have not helped the situation at all. She had the power and control. I did not. She was the bully. I had nothing that I could do. And then focusing on feelings, saying things like, oh, this must be very scary for you, or I understand your frustration. We'll let the person know that you're understanding. You may ignore some challenging questions, but you're not ignoring the person, right? How can we work together to solve this problem? Setting limits, offering options and choices, choosing wisely what you can insist on, because if you say, well, I can get this done by this time when you really can't, that's going to make the person more mad. Silence again for reflections, and allowing time for decisions can help them process and clearly think through, and brings calm to the situation. Go ahead, Beth.
I put myself on mute, sorry. So some tips for de-escalation, always the breath work, and the breath work, it has to do with the physiology of your body. We know when you lengthen the exhale, it's slowing down your heart rate, it's settling in that parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system to slow down. So breathing deeply, not just breathing in, but breathing out all the way. And kind of like progressive body relaxation, you can do that tense and relaxation of your hands, with a long exhale, maybe bringing your shoulders up and holding them tight. And then on the exhale, slowly letting them drop. And doing those 3 or 4 times in a row will be helpful. Of course, talk to someone you trust to debrief. Use grounding techniques. And that can be, feeling your feet on the floor, any of those kinds of things. Naming your emotions, finding ways to release those emotions that are healthier. So box breath, the box breathing is that inhale to the count of 4, hold to the count of 4, exhale to the count of 4, hold to the count of 4. So you can even do a box if that's soothing to you on your hand or on your thigh. The other one that I really like, and maybe this is later in the day, but that idea of doing the lazy 8 breath. So if you want to try that with me, you put 2 fingers here, and you're going to simply inhale your way up, exhale your way down, cross the midline, that's important. Inhale your way up, exhale your way down, inhale your way, and just keep going and try to slow it down as you go with the breath work. And it's just a simple way to soothe yourself. I feel like the lazy 8 breath work is really good to do when you're trying to go to sleep, or if you have tension headaches, or you're just, sometimes even if you're just got a big project you're trying to concentrate on, it's great.
And that picture on the bottom there is called a calm strip, and it's a textured strip of it comes in many different kinds of textures, rougher or smoother. And it has adhesive on the back, and you can attach it to your laptop, your phone, your desk, but it's just a grounding technique. It's a tactile grounding technique, kind of like the worry stone that you see there too. And
So
yeah, the 478.
yeah, I love this one. And I just took this class. I'm a yoga teacher, and I took this class on cardiology and yoga, and it's really interesting. They really talked about the success of, or the high frequency of people who have cardiac needs, that they have forgotten to breathe all the way, some due to the restriction naturally, but they're just holding their breath a lot of the time. So how important this breath work is for you holistically is overall a huge win-win, either on the preventative side or during side or the after side, I guess I'm saying. So if you want to try this with me, and you would do probably 4 rounds of this. So you're going to inhale to the count of 4, but take a big inhale. So inhale to the count of 4, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to hold that breath. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Long exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when you're doing the exhale, my suggestion is you do a loud exhale out, and that you try to stretch that breath out and fully exhale. And you can even, after you've done it 3 or 4 times, you can even take your hands and put them on your rib cage and just imagine that rib cage dropping down, so you can feel that, just the air releasing.
I use this one when I'm trying to go to sleep, and I also used it on the plane when I was, over and over again. So let's talk a little bit about self-care, because this all comes into play when you're dealing with difficult people, right? Because if you are not in such a good spot, your response might be different than if you were having in a good spot with good self-care, right? So how many of you, that is true picture of you right now?
So self-care is really a continuous practice. We kind of get tired of that word self-care, but the idea is through self-care, we're building muscle memory, and that includes brain muscle memory, into reducing cortisol and adrenaline and increasing our dopamine and serotonin. So our brains are wired to run like caveman brains, like fight or flight, right? Either run from the lion or fight for the food. We have to train our brains to tone it down when we don't need adrenaline, when we aren't running from the tiger. We have to learn what that feels like, and we have to figure out when our brain needs that feeling. So every time we do this, it brings our brain chemistry into balance. And that's really what we're after. We're really after this continual just, you know, there's going to be bumps in the road, of course, but trying to maintain that continual calmness. So, you know, Kay, you're going to go through emotional trauma. Do you want?
Just a little bit, just
Okay.
in terms of, again, how we look at the person. They probably, everybody that you work with, I know for Beth and I, everybody that we worked with, had some sort of emotional trauma in their childhood and or their adulthood. And trauma occurs when an external threat overwhelms a person's internal and external positive coping resources. So trauma can be a one-time event like a car accident, or it can be ongoing, which leads to, you know, the big T, the big trauma, the more complex trauma. So people with childhood trauma, for example. So again, to remember that when we're working with people, we want to change the question from what is wrong with you to what happened to you. Do you see that shift? How that shifts? What's wrong with you is more blaming, right? Blaming and shaming. And what happened to you, right? We're asking and you know, that kind of question. And it's an important shift to make as a staff person. And this is a good book that addresses that. I think we're going to keep going with this and just talk about scenarios now in the amount of time that we have left. So your manager, and what I want you to do is think about this on there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what you're thinking you would do. Your manager avoids direct confrontation, makes sarcastic remarks, and undermines your work indirectly. What would you do? So you can either unmute or you can put it in the chat. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
Someone wrote first practice in the breathing. We just learned. Somebody said I'd feel very unhappy.
So, here's my thought, because I've had this kind of situation before. And for me, I have to remind myself that this is work and not take it personally. And then I just go right to the manager and say, I feel like I'm doing something wrong and that you're not satisfied with my work. Can we talk about it? Can you tell me what it is that you need from me, what your expectations are?
Great. How did that go?
Well, it went really well. Generally, when I've done this with coworkers, but especially managers, they don't even realize how they're treating me, and it's generally something else that's going on in their lives that's making them behave that way. And so when I help them to focus on me as an employee or as a coworker, then it gets them out of their head, out of their situation, and it has gone really well.
That's great. Sometimes that's scary with a supervisor because, you know, you're talking with them one-on-one. So sometimes that's difficult with that power situation. Some people like to bring in HR when they're talking with a supervisor. It just depends on your comfort level with that.
Couple different comments, Kay. I would try to talk to the manager about my work. Someone said I would say I feel confused when feedback comes indirectly and I really want to grow. Can we have a more open conversation about concerns or challenges? So that's awesome.
Great. So again, you could use the I statements in this situation, right? To give them specific examples. Because if you just leave it open, they may not understand exactly what they're doing, but when you give them specific examples of us, you know, that's going to really help them understand. So the next scenario, a colleague frequently raises their voice, interrupts others, and dominates conversations during meetings. What would you do? This person is probably a know-it-all. Anybody say anything in the chat, Beth?
Not yet. I can see CC.
Anybody want to unmute?
Oh, someone said don't match the level of aggression. Yeah. Does someone want to unmute?
Yeah, that was my comment, Beth. And I see a few other folks have commented too, but just like we were talking earlier, just trying to not match that level of intensity. Maybe I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but like maybe having an agreed upon set of rules for like meeting conduct and those types of things in advance are helpful in a situation like that.
Absolutely. Someone said I would talk to the colleague about it. I think those are all good things. We've experienced this, and what happened is our meetings started going from like a scheduled 1.5 hour to like 3 hours because for whatever reason this person did not ever feel truly heard. And so it was a matter of developing group rules about building consensus and actually doing like a stopwatch. This sounds ridiculous, but actually doing a timer for, okay, we're going to give 5 minutes to the whole group. Everybody gets 2 minutes of comments, right? And then cutting it off. And it really did help speed it. We had a few of those meetings where we had to do that. And then eventually, I think everybody got into the routine a little bit better and felt better about the meeting. So they rolled faster.
Yeah, I mean, whoever is running the meeting, it would be really helpful for whoever's running the meeting to really help with this situation and pointing to other people who haven't shared. All right, so again, in this situation, know-it-alls, massaging their ego, saying things like, and what other ideas do people have, right? Using the I statements in this situation. And then a client is condescending to you because you are much younger than he or she is and could not possibly know what you are doing. What would you do in this situation? And this does happen a lot. I teach a lot of university classes, and students have a lot to say about this one.
Yes, they do. I would talk, just remind them that I'm here to help. Absolutely. I used to get this one a lot as a child protection and safety worker. Sometimes it was, well, you don't have kids, so how could you possibly know? I would ask them to show me their technology skills and then talk to me. I love that. Validate their feelings, say, yes, I am younger. Remind them that I'm here to help. Despite my age, I do have ability and skill and drive to help. Those are all good, you guys.
I would
And the
try to
students,
I would
go
try to
ahead.
build on that a little bit too on the client, because he's older and wiser, and I would try to build on that a little bit in the beginning, so that you're kind of buying into him, and he's kind of feeling like he has a little importance.
Yeah.
Great idea. Really good idea.
And the students said they would say things like, I understand, you know, that you're feeling that way. I just want you to know that I have had a lot of training. I've gone to school and do have a lot of training in this area. But I'm open to your ideas as well.
Someone wrote, you need to show them that you have knowledge about the topic. You've clearly dealt with a lot. Let's see how we can work together to resolve this. Yeah, I think
Yep.
doing that massaging of the ego is good too, or I don't know, or past experiencing. I think sometimes older people that we serve don't always feel acknowledged for their life experience, independent of what age you are serving them. I feel like it's sometimes kind of ignored. We're here to do this today. So I think that acknowledgement of you've had a lot of experience, what's worked for you in the past. This is what I know about, right? This is my skill, some things I could maybe help you with.
That's because we're the old people now, Beth.
Yeah, we are the old people now. We are the old people. As I was asking Faith for technology help earlier.
So earn the right to be heard by listening to others, seek to understand a situation before making judgments about it. So what were some of your takeaways, your questions, your commitment? What are you thinking?
What I'm thinking is that we don't spend enough time when we talk about stress and things like that. We don't spend enough time in education really dealing with those kinds of things. And then throughout our career, we have to deal with that. And sometimes we're not suited real well for that. So
Exactly.
I appreciate you talking about that, and hopefully we get that in curriculum earlier in colleges.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. We are Beth and I do go into social work classes and talk about compassion fatigue and secondary trauma, but
Mhm.
it's just real hit and miss, right? So
Mhm.
we need to do this in medical school, right?
Yes.
Law enforcement academy, all
Yes.
different careers should have this component in their training and education. I totally agree, but we're a long ways off from that. And so, you know, that keeps Beth and I busy because we're always um, we're always doing that.
And then not only do we need to learn it, we need to practice it.
Yep.
Yes.
See, if we were all together in the same room, we would spend like a whole day, maybe even a day and a half talking about some of these practices.
Yep.
And even though it might make people feel a little uncomfortable, we would have people actually doing these together.
Mhm.
Because I think what happens is sometimes all of a sudden, when Kay and I've taught in the past, multiple times we've had women approach us, and this sounds weird, but it's usually in the bathroom when you're walking out and drying off your
Mhm.
hands. Somebody will come up to us almost in tears and say, I had no idea that this is why my body is falling apart. I mean,
Yep.
they really are, to that extent that they're having multiple complex problems because of all the vicarious trauma, the stress, and everything else. And it's showing up now in their physical body. And there really is a connection. It's very much an evidence-based thing now, and
Yep.
how to
Yep.
get that resiliency back. So we have to be our own best friends. And that's not always easy in the helping field when you're used to helping other people.
That's right. That's right.
And we can do that on an individual level, take good care of ourselves, but it helps to work in a place where your employer also supports that and your colleagues support that, support self-care and taking good care of yourself instead of, you know, you taking maternity leave and people going, well, must be nice, right? Or you taking vacation and going, well, must be nice. I can't do that, right? So it helps on all those levels, but first starting with yourself.
Mhm.
Okay, people are asking for PDFs of the slides.
Yes, I will send that to Andrea.
Yeah, definitely. And we did send out the slides for the first training as well. Those went out, and we'll send out these ones as well. And the recording of today's training will be on the Region 8 Academy. It takes us just a couple of days to get that uploaded. So we'll send that information out to everybody as well. And I said it last week, and I'll reiterate it again. I told you we were in good hands with Beth and Kay. This won't be the last time that they're here in Region 8. I have such respect and admiration for both of them, and the feedback we get from all of you that participating in these trainings is just like overwhelmingly positive. So we'll bring you back again and again, Kay and Beth,
Great, thank you.
until you are like, please, until you block me, I guess.
Never.
Folks, I will ask that you do please complete the short evaluation that is in the chat. And Beth and Kay, I will get you copies of all of that as well. It was really a great session on this Friday morning, and all of the dog pictures. I am a dog person. I love kitties too, but your dog pictures just brought it home for me today. So thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you for the work that everybody does. It's so important. And we wish the best for you, and happy weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all your hard work. It is so appreciated. Have a good weekend. Yay.
Thanks, you guys. Have a great weekend, Region 8. Bye-bye.